All right, let's jump right in. Are you ready to get strategic? Today, we're going to be taking a deep dive into some high-level poker strategy.
Love it.
We're going to be looking at a coaching session video
Okay.
all about tournament play, hand analysis, and those big decision-making moments.
Sounds good.
And now, you might not be the next world champion poker player listening to this,
Right.
but
Oh.
this deep dive is going to be full of insights into risk,
Mm.
how to read people, and of course, strategic thinking, all things you can use in any aspect of life.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people think poker is just about the cards you're dealt,
Right.
but it's so much more than that.
It really is.
Yeah.
So what I thought was really interesting about this particular coaching session video that we're going to be looking at today
Right.
was the approach that the coach took.
Yeah.
So instead of just analyzing hands after the game is over,
Right.
they actually had the player talk through their thought process as they were playing in a live tournament.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah.
So it's like,
Like a live stream.
yeah, like getting inside their head
Yeah.
right in the moment,
Hmm.
seeing how these decisions are made in real time.
I like that approach a lot.
I did too.
Yeah.
And I thought it was funny because the player was initially a little hesitant because of some technical limitations, like
Yeah.
they were worried about their computer not being powerful enough to handle the real-time analysis.
Gotcha.
But the coach was adamant that those raw in-the-moment insights were just too valuable to pass up, even if the setup wasn't perfect.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for capturing that raw thought process as it's happening.
Yeah.
You can always go back and look at hand histories and things like that. But I think there's a level of intuition and gut feeling that you can't really capture after the fact.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great takeaway even beyond poker.
Right.
Even if you're not a poker player,
Exactly. Yeah.
sometimes just trusting your gut and going with that initial instinct can be really powerful.
And this actually leads perfectly into something the coach emphasized, this idea of the power of observation.
Okay.
So they believe that playing under observation can reveal all sorts of hidden decision-making habits, like how long a player takes for each decision,
Okay.
something you'd miss in a simple hand replay.
Oh, that's interesting.
Right.
So it's not just about what cards they play,
Yeah.
but how they play them, their behavior, their mannerisms can give away clues about their strategy.
Exactly. It's like a tell. It's those subtle cues that can give you an edge.
That is fascinating.
And again, this isn't just about poker.
Right.
Think about it. If you start paying attention to your own decision-making process,
Right.
like really observing yourself in those moments,
Mm-hmm.
you might discover hidden tendencies
Okay.
that you weren't even aware of.
So you're saying
Yeah.
we should all be kind of analyzing our own thought processes as we go through our day-to-day lives.
In a way, yeah.
Interesting.
Like, why do you reach for your phone?
Right.
At certain times, or why do you choose to eat?
Mm-hmm.
One thing over another.
Right.
Like those little decisions
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
make up our day.
It's all about those micro decisions, right?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be learned by just being more aware of those patterns in our own behavior.
Absolutely. Okay, well, I'm ready to get into some hand analysis, are you?
Let's do it.
Okay, so in this first hand that we're going to look at, the player finds himself in the big blind with ace-4 offsuit.
Okay.
Not exactly a premium hand.
Not ideal.
Not ideal, no.
Yeah.
And to make things even more interesting, there's no small blind on the table.
Right.
Which can happen sometimes when a player's eliminated.
Happens all the time in tournaments.
So now our player has to decide what to do.
Yeah.
And their opponent limps in from early position.
Okay, so they just call the big blind
Exactly.
instead of raising.
Right. So now this is where things start to get a little tricky.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Because an early position limp can often be a very strategic move.
Huh.
It can mean that the player has a strong hand that they're trying to disguise.
Oh, trying to lure other players in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if they had raised aggressively, it might have scared off weaker hands, and they might have missed out on the opportunity to build a bigger pot.
Interesting.
So by limping in, they're kind of trying to fly under the radar and hoping to trap other players later on.
So it's a mind game.
It is. It's a real mind game.
Yeah, trying to figure out what your opponent is really holding.
Exactly. So now our player with their ace-4 offsuit is in a bit of a predicament.
Yeah.
They have to decide, do they check and potentially give their opponent a free ride to see the flop?
Right.
Or do they go all in and try to scare them off?
That's a tough spot, yeah.
Yeah, and the player's initial hesitation is understandable.
Yeah.
H4 offsuit is a risky hand to play.
Right.
Especially when you're out of position.
Which means they have to act after their opponent in subsequent betting rounds.
Exactly, giving the opponent more information to work with,
Yeah.
putting them at a disadvantage. So it's like playing poker blindfolded almost.
Yeah, it could be tough.
So in this particular hand, the player decides to check.
Okay.
But as the game progresses, their chip stack starts dwindling,
Uh-oh.
and they eventually choose to fold, so they decided to cut their losses
Right.
rather than risk losing even more.
Makes sense.
Exactly.
Right. It's a classic example of risk management.
Yeah.
Something that's crucial, not just in poker, but in life, too.
So true. Sometimes knowing when to walk away is the smartest move you can make.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's move on to the next hand.
Right.
This one's going to get into the nitty-gritty of poker strategy even more.
Okay.
So in this hand, the players dealt Jack 10 offsuit,
Jack 10 offsuit.
and the debate is whether to go all in or simply raise.
Mm-hmm.
And the coach brings up this really interesting concept called maximum pressure.
Oh, maximum pressure. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, let's dive into that. So maximum pressure, it sounds like it's all about like using your bet to kind of force your opponent into a corner.
Exactly. You're putting immense pressure on them to make a tough decision,
Yeah.
especially if they're unsure about their own hand.
So like they might have to risk their entire stack just to call you, even if they're not feeling super confident.
Exactly. It could be a really powerful move, especially against more hesitant players.
Yeah, and it's interesting because in this hand, the player decides to just raise instead of going all in.
Right. There's always a trade-off in these situations.
Okay, what do you mean?
Well, by going all in, you're committing yourself completely, no matter what happens on the flop.
So you're locking yourself in.
Exactly. But by just raising, you retain some flexibility.
So you can kind of adapt to the situation as it unfolds.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay, so like if the flop comes out and it totally changes things,
Right.
you still have the option to fold and save some of your chips.
Precisely. It's all about preserving your options.
I like that. It's like choosing your battles, you know?
Absolutely. And it plays into a larger point that the coach emphasizes, understanding tournament dynamics.
Tournament dynamics, what does that mean exactly?
Well, in a tournament, every chip counts.
Right.
You can't just rebuy if you lose your stack.
Yeah, the stakes are higher.
Exactly. So knowing when to shove all your chips in and go for maximum pressure versus when to make a more calculated raise,
Mm-hmm.
it's crucial.
So it's like a balancing act almost.
It is, between aggression and preservation.
Okay, that makes sense.
And that balance is constantly shifting depending on how many chips you have left,
Right.
what stage of the tournament you're in,
Mm-hmm.
the types of players you're up against.
It's a lot to keep track of.
It is. That's why tournament poker is so complex and challenging.
Yeah, and you know what else I found really interesting?
What's that?
As we were looking at these hands,
Yeah.
it was revealed that some of them were actually from previous coaching sessions.
Well, that's a great point.
The coach was kind of using them to reinforce certain concepts and demonstrate the importance of repetition and learning.
Yeah, I think that's a really valuable approach.
It's like studying game film.
Absolutely. You're not just playing, you're learning from each experience.
You're analyzing your past mistakes. You're trying to figure out what you could have done differently.
And that's a process that can be applied to so many areas of life.
So true. It's not just about poker.
Right. How often do we make the same mistakes over and over again without even realizing it?
Oh, I do that all the time.
Me too. We all have those patterns and habits.
Like I keep hitting that snooze button every morning.
Uh-huh, yeah.
Even though I know it just makes me more tired in the long run.
Or like those impulse purchases.
Oh, yeah.
We all make those.
Totally guilty.
It's all about recognizing those patterns and then making a conscious effort to break free from them.
You know, there's that saying,
What's that?
the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
Exactly. And that's what makes this deep dive so fascinating while we're focused on poker.
Right.
The principles we're discussing, the strategic thinking,
Mm-hmm.
risk assessment, the power of observation,
Yeah.
continuous learning,
Mm-hmm.
they're all relevant to every aspect of life.
Whether you're negotiating a deal or making a big financial decision,
Exactly. It's all about making more informed choices.
you know, being more aware of your own decision-making process.
And ultimately, having more control over the outcomes.
That's a powerful skill to have, wouldn't you say? Yeah, like you said, it's about upping your game.
Exactly.
Not just in poker, but in life, right?
Exactly.
All right, so as we wrap up this deep dive into poker strategy,
Mm-hmm.
what are some of the key takeaways,
Okay. Well, I think
that you think our listeners should walk away with?
I think one of the biggest ones is the importance of observation,
Okay.
especially observing decision-making in real time.
Yeah.
Even with those technical limitations that we talked about,
Mm-hmm.
you can still uncover so much by watching how people make decisions under pressure.
Absolutely, and we can't forget about the importance of position at the poker table.
Oh, absolutely.
Who knew where you sit could make such a difference?
It's huge.
It really is.
Yeah, it can give you a real edge.
And then, of course, all those strategic decisions.
Right.
When to go all in,
Mhm.
when to raise,
When to fold.
when to fold, weighing those risks and reward.
Like a constant mental battle.
It is.
Yeah.
But, maybe the most important takeaway for me,
Okay.
and the one that's really stuck with me, is
Yeah.
this idea idea of repetition and continuous learning?
Absolutely. It's about constantly striving to improve.
Like we were saying, it's like having a coach for your brain,
Yeah,
helping you identify those blind spots,
right.
make better decisions in the future.
Exactly. And it's not just about analyzing poker hands.
Right.
It's about applying that same analytical lens to your everyday life.
So, to our listener out there,
Yeah.
here's a little challenge for you.
Okay, I like it.
Next time you're faced with a tough decision, try observing your thought process.
Be curious.
Like with that same kind of analytical mindset that we've been using to analyze these poker hands.
Don't judge yourself. Just observe.
What factors are influencing your decision?
Right. What are those underlying assumptions or biases?
Could you do something differently next time?
It's a powerful exercise.
It is. It's like holding up a mirror to your own mind.
Exactly.
You might be surprised by what you discover.
Absolutely. So hopefully this deep dive into poker strategy has given you some tools, not just to win at the poker table,
right,
but to win at the game of life as well.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah.
What resonated with you?
What were your aha moments?
Share your thoughts with us, and let's keep the conversation going.
Until next time.
See ya.
You want to start with this? Or do we do our work first? Because I don't know how deep you want to go into it, but it might be a long discussion, depending on how it goes. So maybe we start with poker first. Normally that's your idea, doing the work first.
It's good to bring it up. I like this. Yeah.
And then afterwards talk about something more lighthearted.
So how has poker been for you last week?
And not much of a change. So it wasn't bad. It wasn't good either. I had a bad passage, but I hope I'm out of it now.
Actually, I had one idea for a lesson. We don't have to do it. And also we don't have to do it today. But it would be that you play. How long does one tournament take when you play?
Half an hour.
Right. So my idea was that you play one when you screen share. I take notes and then later we discuss it. But sometimes, sometimes something can be visible that isn't in normal hand reviews like this. And also if you could, it would help if you would narrate what some thoughts you have when you play. How does that sound?
It sounds interesting, but I think we could have something very close to that if we just go over the tournament in hands to note.
Yes, but what we would miss then would be
the name of the people, but that doesn't really matter.
The time.
Yeah, how much time I take for a decision. Yeah, we would miss that.
Yes, and also what you have time to think about, right? Especially if you would describe that I'm thinking about these things and now I make this decision. It could help with realigning with some practical advice, I guess.
Yeah, I would like to do it, but I'm scared that it won't work for technical issues. I'm scared that it's not working. But one day I get a new computer and I will take one that is more with a better CPU and more RAM, and then it should not be an issue. And maybe Bet Online says, okay, or maybe I can try it on another side. I like the idea, I really do. It's just that
I think it would be similar, and I'm not sure they have a way to block it that you cannot be on Google Meet. I don't think they have a way to check it. I do think it would be unethical if I told you what to do during play, but that's why I would only give you feedback afterwards, so I wouldn't impact how you play that hand. So I think there wouldn't be an issue, but we still don't have to do it. It was just something to think about.
Yeah.
So based on experience with other students. Yeah, sometimes it's visible something like that you don't notice something, or you just something in that pace of play basically becomes apparent, or maybe you're checking too quickly if you don't have a hand with. It could be anything. It's tough to say sometimes. Yeah, and it would put more pressure on playing. Obviously, it's in a way tougher to play when someone's watching, although based on my experience, usually people have said they play better.
Can you not, if you want to do that, can you not open a game and ask me what I would do? And I see with the hands that you are dealt, and I tell you I would fold, I would raise 3 big blinds and so on, and you just do it and I just look at the cards, because then the processing is on your side and it would be you who do the work with your computer and not me, because I'm scared that my old computer, which is really old, won't make it. But as
But
long as
if it doesn't make it, what will happen as a consequence?
we lose our time. We lose in half an hour or so, 45 minutes by trying to figure out why it doesn't work. And in the end, it doesn't work. So it's just a waste of time.
Couldn't it be that it doesn't work, then we close it, and then we move on, and then it's it?
Yeah. Well, let's not do it today. But I like, as I told you, I like it. But for technical issues, I'm not sure that it will work as we plan.
Yeah.
I know you want to say it will be fine, but I'm not sure it will.
Well, even if it won't be, let's say your computer crashes, then you restart it, and then we move on with the lesson, and that's over.
Yeah, but you have no idea how long it takes to restart my computer. It's a long,
It
unfortunately.
cannot be done on my side because I don't have access to Bet Online, right? So
Yeah, but you can use one of your wherever you play and just ask me what I do. But the thing is, I would be in a handicap because I wouldn't have my odds calculator, and that would make my life much harder. But we can still try once and see how I manage without my odds calculator, which won't be good.
yeah, well, even that would be good for me to see, right? I could see if I'm happy with the odds calculator. Maybe I know this. I mean, I don't know what I could know this, right? That's the thing with this. So
No, it's interesting, but I have an old computer. It's like more than 10 years old, and I never wanted to take a new one because everything is on it, on my programs, on my documents. And I just don't want to buy a new one and set it up. I think as long as it works, I should try to go with it. And once it totally breaks down, well, then I have no choice but to buy a new one. That's my idea. So
that's fine. So let's look into hand to note then.
Yeah. Okay. Last time I did pick the wrong hands. I don't know what I did actually pick, but I picked the wrong hands. It should be the marked hands.
All right. Looking forward to it. Okay, I'm ready.
So I'm on the big blind and I have an ace and a 4 offsuit.
And what's interesting about this hand already?
Is that I have that everybody is low on big blinds.
Yeah, means something else.
I don't see how many big blinds player 2 has. At 13, he has 13.
There's something else, which is there isn't a small blind on the table.
Yes, there's no small blind on the table. Sometimes it happens.
Yes, I think when one player goes out, right, then it happens.
Yeah. But is it every player or just what, or just maybe the big blind or the small blind or the button?
I'm not exactly sure, but I think if the player in the big blind goes out, then next hand there won't be a small blind, something like this.
Yeah. But it doesn't happen for every player.
Exactly. All right.
So do I just check or do I go all in?
Yes, that indeed is the decision. So this is, here is a hand which could come to different conclusions if we knew something about player 6. But without knowing anything, I would consider it quite strong that he limped in the first position. He limped into 5 people. So I'm not sure he is planning to fold.
So you want me to be prudent or do you want me to try it?
Well, what makes sense to you? What did you do there?
You want to see? Okay, so I checked.
Yeah, I'm happy with this decision. I also think if he folds, then it's good to go all in. But I'm not sure his limp is so weak. He limped into a lot of people there.
I check again on the flop. It's one big blind on the table. Now I will fold because I only have 8.3 left and I don't want to waste any more big blinds. Ace-4, I know I have a pair, but it's button pair. I think it's risky.
Yeah, I think it's reasonable, although I think it's quite fair price for your hand as well. But you are right that a lot of turn cards are bad for you, and if he keeps on betting, then it won't be nice, right? So I'm fine that you fold here. One big blind is important right now. Yeah, I think this went not too bad.
Thank you. So I have a good enough hand to play. I think I should go for 4 big blinds or something like that. I have 5x.
You could also go all in here. With how many big blinds would you think about going all in usually?
14.
14. And how much would the reward be in an unopened pot? Well, see how big the pot was before player 5 called.
2.5.
Right, so if you had 14 big blinds and pot would be 2.55, you would feel comfortable going all in, right?
Yeah, well, I would like it more if he didn't limp, and I was the first to open the pot. But since he limped already, yeah, I think I still could do maybe an all-in ace-jack offsuit.
Yeah, I think it's good enough for this at the moment.
for an all-in?
Yes, I mean 4 is a lot to raise, and then you open it that someone else could go all in, and that wouldn't be nice, right? So you put the maximum pressure on everyone to fold if you go all in.
And
Okay, you go very prudent, which I don't mind actually. I don't mind it. Let's see how the hand develops.
okay, I have tough pair, so I will go half pot.
All right. Yeah, I mean this worked out wonderfully, right? So you took the minimal risk. You didn't put at any point all your chips to risk. The flop helped you as well, but that went well. But you could have gone all in. I mean, that was fine in that spot.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think only one option here. All in, yes. A lot of chips in the pot, and we have a very high hand, right? Only jacks, queens, kings, and aces are better. Only 4 hands are better. Nothing scary so far. Only a small raise and a call. And if we don't go all in, then over half the time there would be a jack, queen, king, or ace on the flop. So that would bring us a lot of problems. So we go all in. I think good chances everyone folds. And yeah, I know it's a lot of chips, but really not against everyone, right? Against the player who raised, player 4, you wouldn't be risking all your chips against player 4. Against player 1, also, you're not risking all your chips. Player 8 has 2 random cards at this moment. And player 6, who has more chips than you, he only called. So out of those 4 players, who's the most likely to call your all-in?
Player 4.
Player 4, exactly. But he has less chips than you. He only has 18.3 total. You see, you're not even risking everything against player 4.
Let's see what I went for 10 big blinds.
Yeah, I mean, it's very similar to an all-in, right? So let's see how it works out. All right, now at this point, seeing how big the pot is, what bet is left if you look at player 4 stack?
He can bet 8.32
To the pot of how much?
into a pot of 24.8.
So what is that? Is that a half pot bet?
Maybe 1/3.
It is 1/3. Very good. So there's only one bet of 1/3 left. So pretty much we're committed now. We shouldn't fold much. Yeah, this is fine for us. You should never fold anymore.
Okay. Now I will put some more pressure on him and I would bet half pot.
Yeah, I think it's fine. I mean, you can only bet 8 really here, right? I mean, I know it shows 12, but actually you're only betting his 8.32 here. But yes, I like this hand so far. And he folds, so that didn't go too badly.
Okay. It's just the difference between doing an all-in and raising to 10 big blinds.
Yes, it is. What would you see as the preference over one or the other?
If I do an all-in and the flop is catastrophic and people act in a catastrophic way to the flop, then I can fold and have 16.4 left.
Right, that's a benefit. Now the downside is they're less likely to fold if you don't go all in.
Yeah, we don't know what he had, do we? Player 4.
No, because he folded.
Okay, well.
But actually, I don't mind this option of 10, but it does bring additional complications, I guess. But yeah, you leave yourself a way out. I don't mind that. And it's still putting a lot of pressure on other players. So it's just that it's common to go all in once the bet is such a big amount of your stack. But yeah, actually, I don't mind it. I like it in a way what you did here.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now we have one limp and 2 players who went for 4 points.
This hand seems very familiar to me, and I see it's from February 10th, so I'm pretty sure we reviewed it last week.
Yeah, it could be the case, since I don't know where the hand came from last week. So maybe we did.
I think I folded, and I was happy with your fold in this hand.
Okay, so you know everything. This one, did you see it? I don't think so.
Yeah, not right now, but maybe it's something looks like a new hand to me. Definitely, I think you can call it, right? We're only risking 2, and very roughly 1 in 10 times, we have a 4 on the flop, which gives us a very good hand, right? So what's 10 times more than 2?
20.
20. I think it's possible for you to win 20 or even more if there's a 4 on the flop, right? It's already a pretty big pot. And maybe you even get all in against player 6 with a 4 and win 60, way more than 20. So I do think it's worth it to call here along the other players.
Yeah, so my option is to call or to make a 5x. So if I do a 5x, I would be putting 10 big blinds on the table again, and these 10 big blinds could make player 6 or player 8 fold.
They could, but I don't think your hand's strong enough for it. So I think I'd rather fold than go 5x.
Okay.
Yeah, one of those, very roughly, one out of those 9 of 10 times when there isn't a 4 on it. But everything here went according to plan. So yeah, it's even a little more. It's more 1 out of 8.5 times there's a 4 on the flop. So, and then you're in a really good situation, but it's not one of those times. So I expect it to fold now to any bet.
Check.
Yeah, another chance. Board's getting worse and worse.
So I check again.
Yeah.
And now I will fold.
Yes, very reasonable.
Okay.
But yes,
Great.
we didn't review this hand last week, so
yeah, I don't know how I picked the hands up last time, but I tried to, at the end of the session, I tried to get rid of all the hands we watched, and I saw that they were not in my marked hands. So we looked at something different last time. But it still was interesting, so
yeah.
It was okay, even if it was not my marked hands.
All right, so this is a spot where we're right on the bubble, but when we're in 4th place, and we're strongly in 4th place, then in some ways it takes pressure off of us, because most likely we should finish 4th here. And with a hand as strong as 8s and 5 big blinds, I think you did the only play you should here. And actually we get all in. If you could choose who you want to be all in against, who would you choose out of all these 3 players?
I think player 4 is good, because if I win, he has not much left, and he could be out very soon, and I would make it to 3rd place.
Exactly. That's the correct answer. So if you chose someone else, then even if you double, you would still be close to 4th place. But against player 4, that's ideal, actually, that he goes all in with you. And you won this, and most likely you made top 3 afterwards. So that's good.
Okay, we have one all in and another guy who won't fold. I don't think he will fold if I go all in.
Yes, he won't fold.
I don't think he will fold if I go all in.
I agree. So your option is either to call or fold. And with these small pocket pairs, you should be looking at least 10 times the possible return. So if you're calling 1 big blind, is there 10 big blinds in the pot as a reward?
No.
Not right now, no. So you would also need player 2 to put extra chips on the pot, but you would only have 5 big blinds left after you call. So even if we imagine he puts 5 extra chips in the pot, then pot would be around 11. That's not very good. So I would want you to fold here.
I think that's what I did.
And it's also, I think it's important to remind this concept that the less big blinds you have, the more 1 big blind starts to matter, right? If you have 6 or 5, that's quite a difference. If you have 40 or 39, that's very little difference. So that's why here it's much better to stay on this 6 than lose 1 extra and have to fold on the flop. So yeah, I hope you fold here. Okay, now it gets more tricky, right? Because now there's even more in the middle. So now the pot is getting close to 10 times this, but it's still not amazing. Even if we imagine that we call this and then the pot will increase 5 more on the flop. Yeah, now it's close with player 7 in it. I guess now I'm indifferent. I feel like pot big enough that it should average out, but the reality of it will be that 9 out of 10 times you will have 5 big blinds, and then 10th time you will likely have more than 20 big blinds. So is it worth it for 9 times to go from 6 to 5 so that 1 time you go to more than 20? It feels awfully close. So actually I'm fine either way, but all in would be a big mistake here. Call or a fold, I think, are very close at the moment.
So the idea is I could risk 1 because what is 7.86. So I could risk 1 to see if I make maybe a 3. on the flop.
But the issue is, even if you hit a 3, it's tough to get pot even bigger because you only would have 5 big blinds extra. So that's the problem. If you have 10 big blinds in this spot, it would be better because if you hit a 3, you can put 10 extra chips in the middle, right? If you have 40 big blinds, then it would be an amazing spot because if you call 1, if you get a good flop, you could possibly get 40 more chips in the middle. So the big downside here is even if you hit a 3, it's tough to make the pot much bigger because there isn't enough chips for that.
Yeah, but the thing is, if I go all in, it's easy because I see what happens and I don't have to worry. But if I see a flop and I'm facing 3 other opponents and one who cannot fold, I think it's quite hard to win actually.
Here's the issue with the all-in.
How many? You said once in 10 times I'll make a lot of big blinds and the rest I lose. Is that what you said?
The rest times you would lose 1 big blind, yes.
But you think that 1 in 10 I'll make?
That's how often that 3 will be on the flop and then you're a big favorite, yes. But all in right now, I wouldn't do at all.
Okay, I think I fold.
I'm happy with this decision. Can we see what the flop was and what they had? All right. Yeah, someone has an ace here. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, if you look at their hands, I don't think they were going anywhere if you were going to be all in. And yeah, King 9 made trips, Ace 5 made a straight. So that's how it happened. All right. But actually, this was a good outcome for you because what happened?
Because 2 people get eliminated? No.
Yes, exactly. You went straight into top 4 with this hand. Exactly. That was great.
But now I have 6 big blinds left and everybody else has...
When the hand started, you also had 6 big blinds, but you were 5th place out of 6. Now you're already 4th place out of 4. So that's actually very good.
Yeah, 4th place is nice, but I don't remember if I made it into top 3.
Well, I think the previous hand where you had 5 big blinds and pocket 8s and went an all-in against Ace 9 was from the same tournament.
Maybe.
So if you click on the keyboard up arrow, if you see the text at the top of the table, hand to note replayer, poker stars 100, 200, ante 30, 30, then there is a code afterwards, which is 968487345, and that's a individual code for a 1 tournament, and it's identical for both of these hands. So both these hands are from the same tournament.
But then this hand is also from the same tournament.
Yes, a lot of these are actually, yeah. All right, let's see this Queen Jack. All right, so we're middle stage of the tournament, 6 left. We have 14 big blinds, but we don't have an unopened pot. We have a limp. So the danger is that the limper might call or some remaining 3 players might call. So, I mean, we have all the options here, but I wouldn't fold yet. I would at least call here. And actually, I like the call option in this hand. All right, you went for the aggressive play. Let's hope they folded and your timing was good here. And they did, so that's nice. So I guess maybe that's an interesting comment for you on that Queen Jack suited. If I think of going all in, I'm more happy to go all in with a hand that is tougher to play. So usually which hands are tougher to play? Which hand do you think you hit more often on the flop? Queen Jack suited or Ace 5 off? If you see the flop, which hand would you rather have? Queen Jack suited or Ace 5 off?
It's hard for me to say because Queen Jack can make 2 nice pairs and it can make offsuit. You said Queen Jack offsuit?
Suited, the hand you just had, yes.
It's hard to say because Queen Jack suited makes, I can make a jack, can make a flush. So there's a lot of stuff that can happen.
Or a straight, right? So,
or even a straight, yes. But if I look at Ace 5 off, my only chance of making it is with an ace.
And there's another issue there. If you hit your ace,
if other people don't have it, it could be scary for them.
Yes, the ace on the board.
Yeah. So I don't know what is better, Queen Jack suited or Ace 5 offsuit. And I don't know what is better.
Well, if you were going all in and you had to choose one hand against the other hand, which one would you choose?
All in. I mostly go all in with aces. not with queen jack suited.
Yeah, but my question was more simpler. It was, which one would you choose, ace-5 or queen jack suited? And let's say the opponent gets the other hand.
He gets the other hand. So now he has ace-5. Now I have queen jack.
You can choose. Which one do you want for it all in?
I want queen jack suited.
All right. Then you would win around 46 point something time, and they would win 53 point something time.
Okay.
So here's I guess the thing I'm trying to explain in this is some hands like to see the flop, some hands don't. And in general, ace-5 is a good hand if it can see all 5 cards and win that all in. But on the flop, ace-5 is a lot of the time nothing or it's an ace. It's like a lot or nothing. The nice thing with queen jack suited on the flop is it's often something. It could be a straight draw. It could be a flush draw. It could be a flush. It could be a good pair. So for that reason, I'm more willing to go all in with an offsuit ace, but if I have a hand like queen jack, I don't mind if we see the flop. Something like this is my thought.
But in that case, you would only call limp.
Well, that makes limp more appealing in a way, right? But your all in was still fine. I mean, you have 14 big blinds, so I don't mind your all in. I'm just saying I wouldn't mind seeing the flop with a hand like this. Whereas if I have ace-8 off, I don't really want to see a flop with ace-8 offsuit. I'd rather get that all in. Because ace-8 offsuit, it doesn't connect so well with the flop, like queen jack suited.
When it connects better with the flop, then you want to see it. You don't want to do an all-in. And when it doesn't connect that good, but it plays good, like aces always play good, you're always favorite with aces, then you go for the all-in.
That's a nice summary. That's a very good summary. And something similar is true about a hand like pocket 8, right? If you have pocket 8s and you see a flop, mostly it's only going to be trouble. There's going to be a 10 on it, a queen, ace, flush draw. Usually it's just trouble on the flop for 8. But if you go all in, 8s has a good chance to beat even ace king or ace queen. So yes, hands like an ace something, especially a low ace, an offsuit ace, and hands like low pairs, they tend to be pretty good hands for all ins. But it's also, you still want folds, right? I'm not saying now that you have pocket 5s and you want to get all in. No, if you go all in, hopefully they still fold. But with the hand like queen jack, it's not always so important to push them to fold, because yeah, you could see the flop and see what develops, basically.
Ace queen suited.
Yeah, super strong hand now. Let's see how it played. Wow, a lot of action, right? I don't see this very often reviewing your hands. That's a raise. Well, raises we see, but a big re-raise, right? So now suddenly you're under a lot of pressure, and there really, to me, doesn't seem too many options here, right? You could call. I'm not a big fan of calling here, because if you call, player 5 will most likely also call, because player 5 has a lot of chips. So I do think the option is between all in, hoping that player 5 folds, but I don't think player 7's folding. And by the strength of player 7's play, I'm not sure your ace queen is a favorite on average. Player 7 could have ace king. He could have a pocket pair. So, and I don't think he has ace 10 or king queen or queen jack very often based on the strength of his play. So what is my recommendation? Where does my reasoning seem to lead me? Towards a fold or an all-in?
Yeah, I agree with what you said. And I also think that I should fold. So I think I think that's what
I hope so. Yes, that's actually very nice that you did this, that you're able to assess that even a very nice hand can be in a lot of trouble. And that's a good fold.
Yeah, that's the proof that my poker teacher is great.
Yeah, there's also sayings that, no one can really teach anyone anything. I think there's, even with babies, it's this, right? That there could be a baby, like let's say a puppy, a dog pup. You could try to teach it to speak, but it won't be able because it doesn't have it within them, that capability, right? So the point I'm making is you can only teach something to someone that they have to discover it within themselves, basically. They have to connect with what you're teaching them. So basically, in a way, it's like you can only help bring something out of someone. You cannot give them something that isn't already within them. So I can only help you in your journey to discover the knowledge that's already within you, something like this.
Yeah, I like the idea that the knowledge is already in us, because sometimes that's the impression I get when I play the piano or other things. I get the impression that I already know the things before they teach it to me. But it's a debate that people have a lot about nurture against environment. I think that's the debate.
Yeah, nature versus nurture is how it's said also, yes.
Yeah, nature versus nurture. And you say if it's not in his nature, then he won't make it. It must
but
be.
But it also needs to be nurtured sometimes, right? It also, if no one talks to a baby, it probably won't develop this ability to speak. Yeah. Or sing or do. So I think both are important, basically.
I think even if he gets food, I think he dies. I don't think he makes it if you don't speak to him. I think you can teach a lot, and you can explain why, if you're passionate about something and you take the time and you're good at teaching, I think you can bring to life in them the love for poker or the piano or something else. Well, maybe it doesn't work always, because, for example, philosophy, I think everybody would have tried to make sure his kid was Stoic and loved Stoic philosophy. But a lot of time it failed. So why did it fail? Didn't they have any good teachers? I think that the Roman emperors had very good teachers, but it still failed from time to time. So maybe philosophy is an exception.
Yeah. I don't have a good comment on that, but I do know that it depends how good the teacher is, that's for sure. But it also depends how moldable the student is, right? From some clay, it's easier to make a sculpture or something like that, right? It depends also the material or the enthusiasm of the student, or how patiently they're listening or trying to improve also. So sometimes you could have a great teacher, but if the students don't listen, then a lot of it is wasted. And you could also have a great student, but if the teacher is not great, then also a lot is wasted, right? So it's...
Yeah, I get that. But with philosophy, the difference is that philosophy in one way is a ship. So it will put a censorship on your life. Will tell you that there are things you should not do. And when you, for example, a Roman emperor, you don't actually like to listen to those lessons, because you think you are God and that everything you want can be a reality if you only ask for it or if you only desire it. So then having somebody who puts a frame on your life and tells you there's stuff you should not do, even if you are an emperor, well, that's something that a lot of people don't want to listen to.
You know, it's a little bit similar teaching poker to people like that, because some advice people very much like when I teach people, you have 14 big blinds, you can go all in here with a lot of hands. People really like that thing. But then another spot I teach them, you have ace queen suited and you have to fold it. They don't really like to listen to it. So it's a little bit similar that in poker also people like learning some things. People like learning to go all in or make a bluff or do some stuff like that. People don't like learning when I tell them, now you're on the bubble and you have to fold a lot and be very prudent.
I really like that, and I think it's funny and it's interesting.
But so far with the hands, I've been very impressed. So if this is quite an accurate sample of hands that how you play, I mean, these decisions you managed very well so far. So
thank you, Norman. But I'm still sure that I make a lot of mistakes. I'm getting better slowly, but certainly I'm getting better. So now I really like my hand, Jack. But again, I'm in a similar position than last time. I do not like a lot that player 5 did raise with 2 big blinds and that player 6 did 3-bet him, because they could have better than what I have. So I'm hesitant in going all in, or even just calling. I'm hesitant. So what should I do in that kind of situation?
Yeah. So here's
but it's really hard for me to fold the pocket jacks also.
Yeah. So let's start with the positive case scenario, right? Let's say you go all in or raise very big, raise 20 or something here, and everyone folds. If everyone folds, how much more big blinds will you have next hand than you had this?
10 big blinds more.
Right. So from 45.8, you would go
to 55.
Right. That's certainly an increase, but you see 45, 55, it's not actually such a big difference, right? It's not even 50% increasing. It's about 20% more chips you would. So yeah, 20 to 25%. Now that is a very nice increase, but also to have that increase, first, everyone has to fold, all 5 of them, including the player who put in 6. So that's and you're also risking all your chips for it, right? And that seems a big risk. To risk your 45 chips, your very healthy stack in this tournament, and to risk all of this just to get 10 more if everyone folds, that seems a lot to risk. Now let's take when everyone doesn't fold. So let's say one player comes along to all in with you. Which of these players seems right now the most likely to do it?
Player 6.
Right. Let's say player 6 does come into all in with you. Now think of the hands that he would come into that all in situation. Will your jacks be a guaranteed favorite when player 6 decides he will put all his chips in the middle, nearly 40 big blind?
Well, I'm not sure that my hand is a favorite. It could be, but I'm not sure.
Exactly. So he could still have ace king, ace queen, which is on equal standing with jacks. He could have some hands that beat jacks, like queens, kings, aces. And sometimes maybe he calls ace jack and you're a favorite. Sometimes he might call 10s or 9s and you're a favorite. But you see, it seems quite balanced. So that doesn't seem a good idea to risk all the chances in your tournament to get in a big coin flip with player 6. That's completely opposed to how I approach tournaments. So here's the problem. If everyone folds, you took an enormous risk to get 10 more big blinds where you had 45. And if everyone doesn't fold, then you're in a big pot and you might not be a favorite in it. Now, here's the thing though. I don't think you have to fold here because can you risk 6 chips? If you lose 6 chips, how many big blinds will you have next hand?
A little less than 40.
Yes, very close to 40, but yes, you're right, 39.8. And that is a decrease, but it's not a huge decrease either. So and you're also on the button, so you're in position. So that's the approach I would take here. I think jacks is a bit too strong to just let go, but it's also where I don't think it's necessary for you to take all the risk now in this one hand and put your whole tournament on the line with this spot. So I would call here 4-6.
Okay, let's hope I did it, but I don't think so.
You were cautious, right? So in general, I always think in a tournament, if you lean towards cautiousness, you're on a better path than if you're leaning towards being too risk-taking. So yeah, I don't hate it, but I do think you could have risked those 6 chips. So gonna be great, no, but on this flop, both players checked, you see, sometimes you'd still be scared off and he had ace queen, which actually wasn't the worst case, right? He didn't have kings or aces, but it wasn't the best case either. He didn't have a hand that your jacks was better. Ace queen and jacks, it's like 45-55. Very close in their strength. And I'm not sure he would have folded his ace queen if you go all in, because people like gambling. So yeah, I think.
Yeah. But what surprises me is that the aggression stopped on the flop and there was no more betting on the flop. They just checked because that's not something they usually do. So
right. But on this flop, I think your hand would be strong enough on this flop to also hold on to at least one more aggression. So if he bets half pot on the flop, I think you can call it. And then you'd hope that he would shut his aggression down at some point. But yeah, he did re-raise, right? There is all the reason to be cautious.
Yeah, I know, but he totally stopped he should have done at least.
Continuation bet, right?
So I was surprised with that.
Yeah, I think there could be different reasons. One possible reason is, 10-9 with a flush draw. That's a scary board because people will have a lot of hands that like 10 and a 9 on the board. So if someone has Queen Jack or King 10 or Ace 10 or King Queen, a lot of hands are connecting with 10-9 in some way. So maybe he was hesitant for that reason.
Yeah, could be.
What did player one have? I forgot. Oh,
We
it
don't see.
doesn't show. All right. So, and you see the cool thing here? He still won with just ace queen. So most likely, what do you think player one had? Tell me a hand that was worse than ace queen.
I want to say ace jack, but I already have two jacks, so it's not so likely.
I know, but ace jack, yes, you're right. You have two jacks, so maybe it's not the most likely hand, but it's still a good answer. And there's still two more jacks in the deck. Another option could be king queen, right? Maybe king queen of hearts, king queen suited, or possibly something like king jack also, but also king jack has a jack. So I think king queen is a pretty good guess.
But that's not a hand he should have played.
Well, but that is why it is possible to make money in poker, because try convincing people that they should fold king queen. Most people don't like to hear that. It's just like most people don't like to hear what the philosophers have to say.
Exactly. Now we did 1 hour of analysis. We can do a couple of more hands if you want, or we can jump the subject and talk about something else for a little while.
Yeah, I want to do something analysis, but not with hand reviews. So could you screen share your hand to note where you're not replaying a hand, just the main page of hand to note?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, now from the top left, there are the main menu tabs. Can you click the second or third icon, which is like the connection icon?
Yeah, I will do it. I just want to write down Jack Jack. No, actually, yeah, I think I remember. Just wanted to write down my last hand because I want to take them off so that we don't see them next time.
Yeah, what was the last hand? Scroll to it. Is this Jack's the hand, right? Right click on it, click with the right button and choose set color marker and choose, well, right now, you could add categories, but just choose a color for it. Now you see on the right-hand side, this color marker appeared, right?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you.
Great. So click the connection button. This, yes. Yeah, this is on all players. So actually, we have already done some analysis on this, right? If you remember. Yeah, click on these all players. Now choose multiple players from the top, a little above this one, exactly. Yeah, I think it's fine. Can you click apply here? Okay, it will take some time, but not too much, hopefully. So what it should show is the statistics page for all your opponents. But I want to look into something special with you for this, right? Something specific. So there's a lot of specific options. So let's start with let's start with the 4-bet. I think that's a fun one. So choose the number in the top right corner of these stats. So the stat page now, we're all the top right side of it, a little to the right, and the other side of this. And 4-bets, yes, you were on the right is the other right. So yes,
this is my right.
I know that's your right, but now the thing that popped up is on the left side of your screen. So I guess on the middle of the screen, but the right side of what popped up, right?
I don't see it.
Go to the right of this, the numbers that are on the right, even more right. Yes, exactly these ones. And now the top right side of this should have 4-bet 21. Now please click on the right. And now what popped up is from your hand history, the instances where people have done a 4-bet. So firstly, are you sure that you know what a 4-bet means?
So somebody goes for 2 big blinds, he makes the first bet. Then somebody raises him, it says 6 big blinds, he makes the second bet. And a 4th bet is if somebody does one more bet for the maybe 20 big blinds.
So it's a little bit like you said, it's actually a little more tricky there. So the first bet is 1 big blind. So what would be the 2 bet?
Min raising.
It doesn't have to min raise. Sometimes someone could go 3 big blinds, but it's the next bet after the big blind was that, right? If someone now makes it more. So if someone limps, that's not a 2-bet. But if someone goes min raise, 3 big blinds, like these normal things, that's a 2-bet. So what's a 3-bet?
After the min raise, if somebody goes for 6 big.
Exactly. For example, if someone goes 6 big blinds. And now a 4-bet means someone goes on top of that 6. They go 12, they go 10, they go 20. So a 4-bet is, even a 3-bet going 6 over a min raise is a strong hand. 4-bet is especially strong. And this chart here shows what hands people have done that move with. And it's also color coded. So you see, the more bright it is, the more often it's happened. And that small number in the box shows how many times it happened with this hand. So what's the most likely hand they've had once they 4-bet with your database?
Pocket kings.
It's been kings. It's happened 23 times. What's the second most common hand?
Pocket ace.
Aces. You see, it's quite close to kings, 21. And that difference, that could just be randomness, as they call it, right? Just that it's been a few more times than that you've seen someone have kings than aces there. That could just be like normal fluctuations. Both these numbers are quite similar. But you see, after aces, now the next hand's number is quite a lot lower already. What are the next hands that people have done it with?
I think the most likely hand is ace king offsuit.
Yeah, ace king off. And I guess if you want to put ace kings into one hand, then if you add together ace king suited and ace king off, then they would also be 23, which is similar number as for kings, right?
Yeah, correct.
There's a gap, and then would be queens, which is half as often as aces and kings. What could be the reason? Because you get dealt queens just as often as kings. So what do people seem to do with queens? Seemingly what they don't do with kings.
They just call.
Well, they call the 3-bet, right? So that means they maybe raise 2 big blinds. Now someone makes it 6 and they were like, yeah, 6 seems big enough. I don't want to make it more. Now that's not always happening. Still queens is getting 4-bet and put all in and made big bets, but it's already happening less often than with ace king. And ace queen also has quite a similar number there, 11, right? For offsuit and 4 for suited. So also ace queen is quite a hand people have used for this move. And then jacks is a little bit behind with 9 times, 10, 7. Some other pairs possibly, right? 9s, 8s, not very often. And then some boxes have like a 1 in it, which means once someone did it. So I guess for the enjoyment of it, click on one of these boxes that's maybe the stupidest hand someone could 4-bet with. You have the scroll bar in the bottom. So use that scroll bar to go to the right side. No, not that one. There's another scroll bar that's on the x-axis exactly. Now that hand opened there. So actually, if you clicked on it, then you could, I guess you can right click on it, open in a replayer, exactly. You don't have to look at it, but if you wanted, you could review that one time when someone made a 4-bet with 4-3 off, right? So, we don't have to change all right, you do want to screen share it. Let's look at it, I guess. All right. So you see it happened in a heads up game and it was against you. So it's even cooler, right? That it's you're also part of this hand. But in this case, we're reviewing it from the opponent's perspective. So yeah, let's review it, see what happens. So now the 1-bet is on the table, the big blind. So assume you're doing a 2-bet here. Let's see. Can you click forward? Oh, you actually limp here. All right. Let's see where this hand is from. This is from last year's play. Now he actually 2-bets. That's called a 2-bet because you didn't raise. So now you will 3-bet him, I guess. You will go a limp re-raise. And because and now he 4-bets all in afterward, right? So this is quite crazy here. And you seem to do something tricky here, right? First you limp and then you 3-bet after he raised. So That's actually interesting from your part as well. Did you call his all-in? You did. And let's see how it played out. And you had Queen 9. So actually your play was also quite... How would you assess your own play in this hand?
I think it's an old hand, and I don't know I don't remember the player, but I'm not sure that I play like this normally.
Yes, that's fine. Yeah, we don't have to discuss this hand any further. It is from June last year, so it's a while ago. Yes, there's hands like you see people sometimes can do big bets and all-ins with 3-4, but that's happened only once, right? So if we now go back to analyzing the things we were analyzing, then actually this goes together also with the hand you had where you had jacks, right? And someone put in 6 big blinds. Now, if you re-raise that, then you would be making a 4 bet and seeing what people show up here with 4 bets. You know, it doesn't seem so clear that jacks would enjoy being in that situation, right? So I guess that's what I wanted to show you. Basically, it shouldn't be anything new, this, right? I think you knew this, but sometimes it's good to have the data back up what you already know, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So I would have done 3 bet with my pocket jacks, and somebody could have done 4 bet, or at least called the 3 bet. And in that case, there's a very high chance that he has aces, or ace kings, or kings. Queens is less likely, but there's a very high chance that he has something very good. And my pocket jacks, well, they're nice, but it would be, in best case scenario, 50-50.
Yeah, you would be hoping maybe it's a silly guy who has one of these hands which has a 1 in the box, or hoping that maybe this time they have 10s, or that they have ace king and ace queen and you're 50-50 or close to it. So exactly, that's the difficulty of jacks sometimes, that it feels right in the middle, especially in these very big pots. So yeah, I think it's enough for this. I mean, there's a lot of data to look at, but I want to look one more thing, which is you see the post-flop section at the bottom here on the left bottom side of this. Yes. And there's post-flop, this big capital letters word, post-flop. And then the first line afterwards is a continuation bet. And let's click the 68 for flop. So what it means that someone raised pre-flop, 2 big blinds, 3 big blinds, and they're continuing their betting, right? So firstly, you see this number is 68. 2/3 of the time would be 66. So it's a little bit more than 2/3 of the time. People, if they raise pre-flop, are betting again on the flop. I don't think you're too surprised by that, right? That happens quite often.
Yes. How many times do they make one? One in 3 times they make something. But
2 they bet something on the flop.
Yeah, 2 in 3 times they bet, but only 1 in 3 times they have something. They make something on the flop.
Yeah, that's from a different math, but yes, you could say that as well. Yes, you could roughly say something like this. So
but that would mean that 50% of the time they are bluff.
You could say like this as well, or at least maybe bluffing is a strong word, but maybe it means they have ace queen and don't have a pair, but they're still betting, right? You could say it's a bluff also, right? So actually the breakdown that now popped up on the right hand side shows you what type of thing they have and how often, if they do on the flop. And it's a lot of categories, so you would have to add together the percentages. So you see 4%, they've had 2 pair or better. Yeah, at the top here are the weaker hands. So I guess what would you consider, where would you like a good hand? From what section? Starting from where? From middle pair or from low pair? What would you consider like a non-bluffing? Yeah, this TP means top pair. These 4-letter acronyms. This is top pair weak kicker. And the one below it is top pair good kicker. So I guess let's look into that. How many of these are more than top pair weak kicker, that they have at least top pair when they're continuation betting? So 9.8 plus all the numbers below it. So if you move your mouse, I could do some mental math here. So that's 11. So that's 20.8 plus 16. 36.8 plus 4, 40.8. So adding these all together is 44.6 that they have at least top pair and their continuation bet. But it could also be an over pair. It could be a 3 of a kind. It could be 2 pair or better. 2 pair or better means 2 pair, straight, flush, all this stuff, right? So this is on the flop. So actually what you said is pretty much true, that half the time they would have something if you scroll up, right? So if you scroll up, you see that they could have a draw. Well, trash. They could have ace high. They could have, some draws, some low pair, stuff like that. But now, for final part of analysis for today, you see the 4 options.
But they do it a lot with middle pair, which isn't a good idea. Well, it's a good idea to make a continuation bet, but it's not a strong hand. The issue with middle pair is that mostly they don't fold afterwards. Once they play their middle pair, mostly they keep playing, even though they only have a middle pair. So I think that's a little too much. It's even more than top pair weak kicker. It's strange that they do it that much with middle
And
pair.
the reason for it is that top pairs are split into 2 columns. So actually top pairs are betting more often.
Oh, yeah.
But
You're
you have
right.
to add together the top pair columns here.
You're correct.
But that's a good observation from you. Now you see these 4 letters or 4 words: range, boards, bet sizing, and hands. So above this new colored section, there's range, right? Can you click on bet sizing? So this is actually a very cool tool. I guess use the scroll bar to go a little to the right here. So yes, that's nice. So the first section on the left-hand side is called sizing. So what it is all these same colors break down by sizing that people use and how often they happen. So do you see that small 22 and next to 0.4 to 0.6 point? Can you move your mouse there?
I don't see any 22.
Yeah, I'm looking at sizing. Do you see where it says sizing above this table? On the top left, yes, these are sizings, right? And now just to the right of this are numbers, and there's 22 there.
Yeah.
Right? So that means that's the largest of these numbers in that column. So that's the most frequent sizing they use. And if you read the text on the left, it says what sizing it is. So that sizing is between 0.4 to the other side, to the left, between 0.4 and 0.6 pot. How would you call that bet size? What is around 0.4, 0.6 pot?
Maybe 1 big blind.
So 0.5 pot is half pot. So this is, roughly speaking, bet sizes that are around half pot. These are most common that people use.
Okay, makes sense, yeah.
Okay. Now, if you see the numbers above and below 22, where are the other bigger numbers? Below 22 or above it? The bigger numbers are above or below 22?
Above.
What's above 22?
17, 10.
Okay, I guess I would call it below, but under it, right? Under 22.
Yeah. Under it. But I mean, most of the time, they bet above, so they bet more than that.
It's the opposite, actually, because if you read next to 17, what text does it say next to that 17?
It says 0.25.
Right, that's a quarter pot or third pot, and this one is, the last one there is if they bet less than quarter pot. That could be 1 big blind or very small bet. And now the numbers above it, you see this is 2/3, and then this is 3/4 or pot size, and then the very top, it's overbet, right? If someone bets even more than in the pot. So you see, it's more common that people bet half pot or less than that they would bet more than that on the flop.
Okay. Yeah.
But now let's concentrate on this color section on the right side. And it also has this percentage on it, which says how often are they weak when they use that sizing. And by weak, what it means here is they have less than a middle pair, I think. That's considered weak. So with which sizing are they most often weak?
So they're weak when they don't bet a lot.
Exactly. Now, this shouldn't be a surprise either, but it's again data backing up that when people bet smaller on the flop, they're a little bit, they could still, you see that small sizing, you see that there's some yellow and orange here, right? Can you go to yellow and orange, the last ones there? These are top pairs, right? So it's still possible people had top pairs, but where is there more yellow and orange? Go to that one which has more of it. These ones, and you see these are when someone bets 60, 70, 80, 90% pot, right? So when they bet smaller, they have less of this. Now, if you see the brown color, the brown was over pairs. So browns is if you have aces, kings, queens, these things. And again, where is there more brown? It's with the bigger size, right? And if you look to purple or the middle pairs, or you look to blue, it's a bit tough to see blue because it's under the text. But blue was when people have draws, and there's way more blue on these weaker hands. And also the green, which is very much hidden by text here. There is more green, which was trash hands here for when people bet smaller.
All right.
So I guess the bigger the bet, the more cautious you should be. Now, I know can you go a little longer, or am I going too much over time now?
No, you're not going too much over time. It's interesting.
Final bit of extra analysis here. So go to you remember the 68 that you just clicked on the left-hand side? Yeah, you clicked it a while ago that popped this thing open, right? Now let's skip the turn for now, 69 to the next of it. And let's click the 65 for river and see how it is on the river. And you see on the river, this is especially apparent here. So this is not every time they bet the river. So first I have to bring to your attention that this is the river when they raised pre-flop, they bet flop, they bet turn, and they bet river. So this is the statistics when it's called the triple barrel. They still bet the river, right? You could also say that's the scariest thing that can happen in poker if someone just starts betting and doesn't slow down at any point. You see there's very big color differences here for what size they do their river bet after betting the turn and the flop. If you look the over bet, which is the first section here, which is when they go all in on the river more than pot, it's all purple here, with this purple mean 2 pair or better, right? 0% weak. And now if you look the pot size bet or 3/4 bet on the river, that's also a lot of pink there, mostly pink, more than half pink. And now when you see half pot, that's where yellow starts to appear. And when you go to very small size on the river, that's when the weak starts to go bigger, right? That they're more bluffing. So
half pot is 0.4, 0.6?
Yes, 0.4 is 40%, right? 0.6 is 60%. Half pot is 50%. So this is in between these, yes. Half pot is included there. Third pot is included in the one below it. And this is where they start to use more weak hands, more bluffing, right? So more green is now in this sector. And the last one is if they bet less than 25%. So they bet min bet or bet very tiny. And that's where you see there's more this darker blue, which is second pairs and weak pairs. So on the river, it's even more apparent here that people are betting, how to say, in a way more honestly. They're betting, if they bet big, they have it more. If they bet small, then maybe they're bluffing or don't have too much.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I have to take it serious what they do, because they are very weak pairs, do a lot of dumb stuff. But I still have to give a lot of credit to what they do. Well, if they're big fish and they're marked as big fish, I will maybe call when I normally don't, but I still have to be careful.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff like this we can do in the future. But yeah, I think for now it's enough new stuff we looked at into this. So I would call it the lesson and we could chat a bit if you'd like.
Yeah, with great pleasure. I just have to turn my camera off for a couple of seconds, but you can start. The best thing you could do is if you want to talk about what you watched and your impression of it, the best thing is if you remind me what it's about, because I have listened to it, but I always register in French and then I forget the right words for what I have listened to. So please remind me what it's about and then give me just your impressions. And once you have done that, I'll get back to you with some comments. I just turned the camera off for a couple of minutes, not long, 30 seconds, and then I'll put it back on.
So it was about competition that he talked about. And I guess he separated into 3 sections, right? So what he meant by competition is that if you win, that means someone has to lose. But then he also talked about that there are situations where you could be doing something that's mutually beneficial, so both parties win. Or you could do something where there isn't losing, that there's only winning without any competition aspect. So how I see this, that's something like learning, right? If you learn, no one loses from it. That's so how I interpreted what he said, that if you just improve yourself and then mutually beneficial, that's, I guess, like work, right? That's a lot like work, really, where people exchange services. Someone's a taxi driver, someone's a teacher, and people exchange things so that it's mutually better for everyone. That's how I interpreted that win-win scenario. And you could also say like a student and a teacher relationship should be something like that as well, that it's good for both if both do well. That the student wants the teacher to be healthy and happy and doing and sharp and well. And also the teacher in many ways is only as great as their student. The teachers are known by their students. So the more students some teacher has, or the stronger the students are, or the smarter the students. Like if you're Socrates and your student is Plato, that shows a lot, right? So that's what I was thinking about in that section. And then he also brought some research into it, talking about that. I remember he said there's example where it's been studies where you give tasks to a group of people, and one group you say that there's a prize for first, like who does best, and the other group you say, don't say that, just do that task. And he said that the group where there was a prize at first, their results were worse. The things that they did weren't as good. And that was really interesting for me. And made me think about this. And I guess so the first impression, it was interesting. I really enjoyed how he described and compared, and that I really liked that he had these examples of studies. And maybe sometime if I cannot forget about this topic, then I'll research it more, and I would be interested to I guess basically confirm if I think those studies are proper. But then what I thought about really was, where do we see most of this competition that he described, where one party wins and another party loses? And I guess poker comes to mind, but more generally in a societal plane, I think mostly what comes to my mind is sports, right? That in sports there's winners. And then I came across this thought that, well, sports is also in a way the least productive part of society, because sports people, if they play football, they compete with each other. They don't actually produce any. So other than, I guess you could say, entertainment for the others. And people do like to watch it. So I guess there's some value in that. But that really made me think about that, basically, how mutually beneficial things somehow in my mind relate with the ordinary jobs people do. And that's clear what that produces. But then sports, where there's a lot of competition, where losers lose and winners win, it's not so obvious what they're producing, right? A baker, you know what a baker produces, or a farmer, or what service a taxi driver does. Sports and Olympics and all these things, they do seem to be less productive in that way than mutually beneficial activities, right? So yeah, I mean, that, I guess I should give it more thought, but it was illuminating in many ways, because I've always come from the standpoint that competition drives innovation. That's what I've been taught as well, that, for example, during war times, a lot of innovation happens, or also, like, I guess you could say it with sports or any of this type of competition, that drives people to do better. But actually, now that I think more about it during the call and afterwards, yeah, there's many where people aren't necessarily competing, but they're also improving things, right? Just like learning, or just a lot of things people do. Like, even if a mother is making food for her children, she isn't competing with anyone during that, but she probably also is improving over the years and trying to do better and better. So maybe the competition aspect is a bit overrated, but in a different way, it's difficult to, because competition is in some way still part of everything. Like, even in the mutually beneficial activity, there's still some competition in it, right? Businesses compete with each other. If you're a baker, there isn't a clear win-lose, but there's still like a competition also going on, right? So, and that made me think about sports also, that really, even though sports come to my mind as win-lose, they're not really that. Because if you watch any sports, I know you like tennis, for example, well, even the guy who loses the Wimbledon is doing very well and is a professional tennis player. So even in sports, even if you're the worst football team, you're still a professional footballer, so you're still winning through this activity. So that leads me to the thought that it's not very easy to think of things where there is like a clear win. And in poker, for example, I've always thought in this way that, well, it's not clear win and a loss, because a loser also wins the learning experience. And that's also valuable, right? Through losses, that's an ability to improve. So I guess the final thing that I was thinking about is, it's not so easy to think of things where there isn't like possible to see a win for both sides. And I guess the things where it's clearly that one side loses a lot or gets taken disadvantage of, you could think of these things as evil or bad things, right? So the same is, let's say it's a boxing match. It will be stopped if someone gets hurt too much, right? If you stop it the right time, then there's a winner and loser, but both people will be healthy and learn from this, and both win something. They will win the prizes. Even if they lose, they get some prize and money for it. And they learn from having the opportunity to have the experience of high competition and all of that. But so I guess basically my summary was that the competition really, like the bad kind of competition he described, happens when winners do too much, when they're too evil, right? When I think even on gambling sites, they allow people to block themselves, or it's like this. Even if you win, you don't want to win in a way where the other party gets completely destroyed, because that's this sort of win-lose that's out of balance. And last example on this is, for example, in animal kingdom as well, let's say there's prey animals and predator animals. Actually, the predator animals cannot eat too much of the prey, because and actually that often happens, if I'm not mistaken also, that predators often eat the weakest of the prey animals. They're not just killing the strongest, because if they did that, then what would happen if they overdo it? All the prey would die. And now predators would have no food and would also die. So even in these nature things, there still has to be a balance there that, okay, if there's prey and predator, the predator cannot be too much of a predator so that it completely makes it a big loss for prey. And actually, I think in nature, there is a benefit for prey that there are predators, because I think that if predators eat the weakest of the prey, that keeps the average prey animal healthy and strong, and well, that's natural selection essentially. So, and I wanted one more natural. Oh yes. So if in most animal kingdom, I think it's the same, that if, let's say, two wolf and a wolf fight with each other, or bears, or all these animals that are fighting, then it's very rare that they fight to the death. That's when something goes wrong. So often it's like one wolf gets another one's throat and it signals to the other, okay, I won, but it doesn't actually kill the wolf, because that would be like making it from a win-win experience where both were just having sport competition, essentially, to that win-loss. So yeah, that's how I take it basically. And I think the important mindset to have in competitive environments is to recognize that you win either way. If you win, that you had that experience, right? So let's say I was to play tennis with Roger Federer, that would be completely as unequal as a match could ever be. I would for sure lose, and very likely I would get no points in that match. But just having that experience, that would be a huge win for me, right? So, but even if it's closer and Roger Federer beats some tennis player that's ranked 50th in the world, I think that's a great experience for the 50th player in the world, that he could test his skills against Roger Federer, maybe win some rounds also. And through that experience, now he can have a new path in his training to know what would be where he needs to improve and get stronger. And so I think it's very important. I still think sports and all these things are good, and the competition element, but it shouldn't be overstated, and it shouldn't be all about that. It's like there's this saying, I'm not sure if it's an English saying as well, but in Estonian we say something which translated means sports wins. So whatever the outcome of the event is, you could say this guy win, this guy lost, and then a nice or funny person would that say, where like it could be an outsider, could be either of them, could say sport won. So like both players won through this experience. Yes, someone won a little this competition, and that's also good to have some rankings and know who should move to, let's say it's two best, let's say we're going to Olympic Games and only one guy from Estonia could go. Well, then it's good to figure out who should go to represent Estonia, right? So I still think it's good that sports has these ranking systems, but at the end, if everyone wins through this competition. And I've also thought about poker. There's so many people in the world who I've played on the same table with, and I don't know who they are, but in many ways, I've learned through all these experiences when someone's beaten me in a poker match, and hopefully they've also learned when the opposite has happened. So I guess, long story short, that's the thoughts I had, but I really enjoyed that video, and I might even listen to it again, because when I listened it, I was also laying down and a little bit.
Yeah, I remember. Well, you gave an interesting summary, but you did a little put aside the main point of the video.
Sure.
I guess, or at least it doesn't seem so important when you talk about it. And the idea was that competition most of the time is bad for us. It's only good in certain situations where you do it for fun or entertainment or pleasure, like sports, playing poker and so on. But in most situations, especially academia, when you put a lot of competition on people and you tell them you are like 50 and we will take the top 5%, everybody else, his career, as a lawyer stops here, then it's a very bad situation to be in from a learning perspective. That's the worst kind of environment you can be in when you have that kind of pressure. So I don't think that competition is very pleasant for us to be in under too much competition. And he also said, even if you win, it's just you just won this time. There's no saying that you will win the next battles that will come. So being under constant competition to survive, if that's in the market or if it's in academia, for most people it isn't that nice. That's how I thought about it, and it is not that beneficial for humanity. So the thing is, I haven't read his book, but I'm planning to do it. So I will read his books, the book that were mentioned, and then I will have a better idea. Now, I approve of the conclusion from a scientific perspective he drew, that competition most of the time is not beneficial for us, especially in academia, where you try to learn and acquire new skills. To have too much pressure on you will make you perform worse than if you just do it for the love, for the fun of it, just because you're passionate about it. That will give you much more than if you are under immense. So I agree with. Now, I do not agree with parts of what he says. For example, I think he's quite woke, and I think you could so see that during his intervention, because he was very hardly criticizing Trump, which I don't mind. I'm all for criticizing Trump on a lot of levels. But I don't think we would have had the same amount of criticism if it was Kamala or Biden. So that's what I don't like. So I think those people have still an agenda they follow, and you must be a little careful about that. But from a scientific, I didn't read the studies he's talking about in detail, but I think it has weight. And I personally don't feel good if I have too much pressure on my shoulders, and if the competition is too hard, and if the outcome of that competition could have immense impact of my future life. Then I think it's too much, and it put too much pressure on me, and I won't show the best of my abilities.
I really liked your comments. I wrote down some reply to this. So I think I agree in general. I guess starting from what you said, that competition is nice. It's a little like if you think of food, it has to be like a sprinkle on top of it, right? Or a cream on top of a cake or something. So if it's I think you summarized it very nice, that if it's a nice fun activity that some friends are doing or something like sports or free time, then competition seems like an okay part of it because it isn't so serious and no one really cares so much about it. But when it's someone like what's their occupation and wanting to become a lawyer and their whole life depends on whether they get to this or that school, that's when it feels like the whole cake is just that competition part, and suddenly you lose all the enjoyment of it, right? You lose the fun of being a baker and baking, and you're just, or the fun of why you want to be a lawyer, to help people or to study the law and the society and all these things. And the pressure can get too much, right? So I clearly agree with this, that it's not too good if it's too much pressure. However, I get to this point that you see that when does it happen when there is too much pressure or too much competition? That happens when too many people want the same thing, right? So if we think of society, we might not need 50 new lawyers a year because people don't use lawyers that often. And even if there was 50 lawyers, there wouldn't be enough job for all of them, right? So my thought goes to that, in a way, people have a choice how much competition they take on. And you don't have to choose a field which there's so much competition for. So I think there's also personal responsibility there, that people have to say to themselves, well, do I want to go into where everyone's going and everyone wants to do this thing, but there's only a handful that will be selected. So in some ways, there would be less competition and to become a lawyer if less people wanted to go to it. So maybe the thing is, people I think there are things where everyone could be like, I think there's always jobs that people don't want to do and there's not competition, right? I think some jobs there's always a demand for, but I think there's always need for some type of works. And if people were open to it, then it would be, then they could go there, they could do it. If they enjoyed it, there would be less competition for it and they could get a good price and there would be little pressure and things like that. So I think the problem is that a lot of people, maybe it's social, because if I think of history, there was like smiths, and then there were shopkeepers, and then there was priests, and maybe a lot of people were just farmers as well. Maybe it's to do that we just have an automation and now there's less jobs required. I'm not sure what it exactly is, but it does seem that a lot of people want to go to these same things. So I guess my general advice for this is that if you decide to become a lawyer and you know that for only every 10 people, only one get there, then it's your choice. And then you should accept that you're going into something which is a cake with a lot of cream, and it's all about competition and a lot of pressure. And maybe if it's what you want to do, then it's very tough, right? If it's only this thing. But for me, I think, I'm not sure I'd want to do something that has a lot of competition and really like be under that pressure too much. So I think I would be fine just asking myself, what jobs are a lot on the market? What jobs people don't want to do that have like a decent salary and that I could possibly learn and be fine in. So, and I had one more thing I wrote down here. I guess not. I guess that was my main point, that we have some choice and we don't have to do the choice that leads to these fields that have the highest competition.
Yeah, unfortunately for a lot of people, that's hard. I think it is, because they would have to settle for something that is not desirable for them or their family members. They would approve of it. They would look down on it if they chose something else. And I'm not sure that they would find any fulfillment in it. That's the hard thing. But I'm not too much interested in talking about job selection and what you should take as a job. That's a little going on a tangent. That's a little off topic, in my opinion. But why do we have such a competitive society? He said that there were societies where they're not structured around competition, and they were thriving. So it went very well for them. And he said that we have several we can show to, and we only need one to prove that competition is not necessary. So I also found that very important in what he said. So I think competition is just something the elites came up with because it is in their favor. So if you look at Kim Jong-un, well, he likes to have the most fanatic people around him who adore him like a king, like a god even, and we would sacrifice everything for him. He likes to have that kind of indoctrination. So so it is hard. The selection process is very hard to get close to him and to be admitted to do anything for him. And this extreme competition makes sure that he has great slaves. I mean, he doesn't want to do everything. When his dog gets sick, he wants somebody to take care of his dog. So if that guy is the most indoctrinated and the best for the job, according to him, then he's all fine with it. I don't think he cares too much about the rest of his population, you know? So I think extreme competition where people fight to death. I mean, by pianists, there were cases where one pianist would harm the other guy's hand, so just he could not play in a competition, you know? But that kind of stuff, when you push it to the extreme, well, it's nice for some people who can enjoy the fruit of that competition. But most people, I'm not sure that for them it's the best way of thinking. And when you talk about jobs, I think it will change a lot with artificial intelligence and what can be automated. I think that's also what we start to see in America with Doge from Elon Musk. So I think he's already changing a lot in the American government by putting in much more AI and taking out of the job human beings. So that, in my opinion, will only grow really, really fast. And so competition, yeah, it's great if you are on top and everybody is it's in a mindset to get close to you and to get some fruit, some benefits. But most of the people won't make it to the top position. So for them, it's not that interesting, you know? Does it make a little sense, or do you think I'm too extreme now in what I say? You can be honest.
I mean, this is the numbers, right? So it's the same. I'm not in top in poker. I'm like, I'm just somewhere there, right? There's many people who have been way more successful than me as well. But it can also be fine if you're not in top. So even just being on the journey is good. So I really liked what you said on the pressure from family, right? And that goes together with what you said, that there's something in our culture that people hold competition to such high regard. And you can feel it, yes, from family members' pressure. And I actually watched a documentary movie yesterday, Estonian movie about an Estonian, like a figure skier who does like tricks, about a girl. She's a woman now who was very successful. And in Estonia, she was like the biggest star.
Why do you say she's a woman now? Was she a man
Oh,
before?
she grew up, right? But the film was about also when she was like 12 years old and 14 and competing.
Okay, but she didn't.
So,
okay.
Yeah, the documentary was about, I think, last like 7, 8 years, something. And the documentary really was about his father, who never was successful in his competitions, and saw the promise and interest in her daughter, and saw that as a way for him to self-actualize in a way. So that father trained his daughter as hard as possible, and that led to a lot of success, but that also led to a lot of mental problems, their family problems. The girl was fearing for her life and really started to hate his father. And also at the end, not at the end, but in part, it led to injuries. So there was times when she was tired and she was training too hard and all that, but her father kept pushing her that, no, you're lazy, you have to do more, you have to be better, you have to win the Olympics, all these things. And then in her sport, it was so visual, right? Because she's doing these tricks and jumping, and she's a small girl, 12 and 13. And then next moment, she was tired, she fell, she broke her legs. And it was like a very visual way of showing how pushing too much to competition could break someone mentally and also ruin them physically and cause them injuries, and show that sometimes more isn't better. Sometimes pushing harder can just lead to bad things. You want to comment something on that, I think?
No, not particularly. But I think you found an extreme example of that.
Yes, it's just very illustrative.
Yeah, but it's true. It's true. I mean, is it worth killing yourself or having very bad issues for the rest of your life for just a medal, for just some prestige somewhere?
Or money also, I guess money was a big part of it. In that documentary, his father was saying that, like, you get this place in a competition, you get so much money, and then you didn't get first, you got second, you cost us this much. Now, there was a lot of this pressure on her also. And she was just 13, right? She was a child.
Yeah, of course.
But you're right, it's not as bad, but there's still this pressure in our society. So what I really want...
But the thing I want to put in front, push forward, is that since our society anyways will change a lot, maybe we should look for a different model now, something less competitive, and something allowing people to participate more in the system, even if they are not the best of the field and will not invent antibiotics or something like this. I mean, you can still be worth something to society even if you're not the best, or even if the official quotas are already full, So I'm not sure that we still need such an extremely competitive society. And I think it would be good if we would look for something else for the masses, because I see a very dark future if we keep being extremely competitive and we need even less people than we need today. If lawyers lose the job, if doctors lose the job, and so on, then what do you want to be competitive in? It gets very hard. Not everybody can be an Olympian, and win a medal in some sports competition, or even be the best poker player. Not everybody can manage that. So we must be a little careful with extreme competition, especially when I think it could even get worse in the future because of AI.
So, yeah, I mean, I actually didn't get to my final point. I agree with what you're saying. So my kind of view is, if the issue is in society, and I just brought it as one.
I mean, it is great if people are educated. If people want to study medicine, just to be educated and know a lot about medicine, but they never get the occasion to practice, is that really a bad thing, Why not just open the doors for them and let them be of some reference? Then you have a couple of friends who know a lot of medicine, and you can talk with them through something if you have an illness. I mean, do they really have to get the highest grade possible? I'm just thinking about the future, and I'm a little worried with the evolution that we are seeing, and that can be even faster. And extreme competition in that environment seems harmful to me, for most people.
So that I feel like I still haven't gotten to the point.
Sorry for cutting you, but
that's what you were saying. I feel like it's already moving that way, because a lot of top universities have put their lectures up for free online. So I've already done it. I already know people also who do it. That sometimes I just watch stuff from MIT lectures and so on. There's also an MIT poker course. I don't know if I ever mentioned you that. I didn't. Well, I'll send you the link afterwards. So that's already possible, right? That if you're interested in medicine, you could start there's a lot of free materials and study tools. Not all of them are free, but with the internet, I feel like it has given a lot of opportunities for people to improve themselves, right? Like I'm studying Chinese, for example, or things like that. I don't have to go to university for it. I'm doing it with the mobile apps and things like that. So I'll send you the course on poker from MIT after this. But yeah, interesting. I often mention it. Somehow I haven't for you, or it was a while ago maybe. But really, I wanted to say that pressure from family, and why I brought this example, that how I think of societal issues, like there's too much competition. I really think of society as individual people. So when I think of change, to me, I always have this belief that big changes starts with little things, and this butterfly effect. So really, if there's a lot of pressure on family that if you don't do this, you're a failure, the easiest way to start changing is start changing by your actions and living what you believe, and standing up to your inner circle, to your friends, to your family. So if your family is pressuring, then the change is to stand up to that pressure. And if a lot of people do that, then society would change. So if family says do this, then it takes this individual courage to be that, I know you want for me. I know you have these and these standards, but for me, I'm seeking something else. And at the end, it's my life. And I'm looking for something that's with less pressure. And that was the point I wanted to make. And I have this small comment on that. It's another quote, which I think I know in Estonian, but I think the version of it in English would be something like, anything worth doing is worth doing well. I mean, this could also be an English quote. I think my father also told me something similar. So to me, this is really like the quote that goes with the essence of being against these high standard or societal norms, basically, that you could be anything. You could be a cleaner. You could do any job that there isn't so much competition in, but you could do it well and you could do that job prestigious. If you do it with, I really like Japanese on that. There's so many great documentaries on their family businesses or restaurants or all these things that the thing I feel like is lacking in our culture is there isn't anything about lawyers, for example, that makes it prestigious other than that the lawyers themselves, if they do a good job and keep good standards and are good people, that makes the occupation prestigious. So you could go into any field, and if you're going to be the best garbage man, and if everyone else will also be, then at some point everyone be like, wow, the garbage men are so professional, so good at their job. They're super professional. So basically my point is the prestige comes from how you do it, and that could be anything. And I think if you stand by that and if you live with your beliefs, then that is like a way to show to others and change the society and have impact.
Yeah, it's good advice. So you're telling us to be the change we want to see.
Yes, that exactly, yes.
Okay, Norman. It was great talking to you. I enjoyed our small talk about competition, and thanks a lot for the hand review. It was great.
What about this book? What about that one?
The statistics were interesting, yeah. Yeah, they were interesting. But we see more or less what we should see. I don't think there were a lot of statistics that were very surprising to us. Most of most of the time it was what we expect or supposed to see. But yeah, for me, I don't really know what I'm supposed to see. So it is important for me to see it, because I'm still not sure what I have to expect.